Hello. The time is now 4:31. Everyone, we're going to go ahead and begin the meeting and call it to order. Thank you. Okay. My name is Dr. Jasmine Nolan Eccles. This is the Charter Commission of City of St. Louis on April 1st, 2024 at 4:30 p.m. And we are calling the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the roll call and approval of March 4th, regular and special meeting minutes by Secretary Bobo.
Yes, when I say your name, please signify that you are here by saying here or present. Chair Nolan Eccles,
Present.
Chair Sheridan, I believe he's on.
Present.
Okay, great.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Crossland,
Present.
Commissioner Dwight, Commissioner Garth,
Present.
Commissioner Grant,
Present.
Commissioner Intagliata,
Present.
thank you, Commissioner Riley, and Secretary Bobo, I am here. I'll also call the non-voting members. The Honorable Joseph Vollmer, Director Casey Milberg, Ms. Tiara Thomas, thank you, Director Christine Ingracia,
Present.
City Councilor Sheena Hamilton,
Present.
thank you, Director Sonia Gray,
Present.
thank you, and Mr. Jake Hummel. I also want to quickly notate that Commissioner Dwight is also present. And now we will move to approve the meeting minutes from our last regular meeting, which was on Monday, March 4th. I'll entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Secretary Bobo. The next item on the agenda is the chair's report, which you all should have received in your...
Madam Commissioner, could I, at this point, make a motion to amend the agenda to move items 5, 6, and 7 to be immediately addressed?
Okay, do I have a second?
Hold on. Give me a second. There's no... Okay. The chair's report is what we're addressing currently. When I move past the chair's report, we can entertain motions if they are pertaining to the chair's report. Are you entertaining a motion related to the minutes that she passed and voted on?
I am entertaining a motion to amend the agenda to move 3 items up prior to the chair's report. And I have a second on that. And perhaps Parliamentarian Garth, you could let us know whether that's a legal move or whether we should fall back on the agenda as stated.
Officially, there's a motion on the table when the second has been hit. So the question becomes, is this a roll call vote or just a unanimous vote?
I think I would like to yield the floor to the rules of order and operations related to the agenda. And if we could, City Councilor, pertaining to those rules of order operation, what would be the appropriate response to this request?
I concur with Parliamentarian Garth. You have a motion and a second on the floor, and you should take a vote.
Okay. So Secretary Bobo, can we please proceed with the voting per
Yes. All
commissioner?
those in favor to move items 5, 6, and 7 up to right after roll call, which would be right now. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 5 is discussion regarding options, vision format, and timeline for commission meetings, including work group meetings. Secretary Bobo, Commissioner or Parliamentarian Garth, and Commissioner Crossland.
Let me go ahead and start out with this. There is an observation that there's a lot of overlap now that's occurred as a result of the recent recommendations between working groups 1, 2, and 3. We saw evidence of that on this past Thursday evening when we held a public hearing and found that it was difficult, not just for us, but also for our guests to be able to discuss issues because they were being discussed in more than one working group. And therefore, at this point, particularly since we are now at a stage where the entire group needs to know and understand each recommendation as we move forward, it is the sense of several commissioners that we need to now complete the work, essentially put the working groups on hold and meet heretofore as a full commission, and to meet more frequently than as a full commission. And that is the gist of this, is that I would make a motion at this point that we no longer have work groups, and that instead we meet as a full commission, and that we move to a twice-a-month schedule of the full commission. I would make a motion that we would no longer meet in work groups per se, the current work groups, and that instead we would meet as a full commission twice a month with special meetings as scheduled as needed between. Yes.
Use your microphone.
I think that I would recommend that we ask then the work groups to finalize their recommendation prior to that. If that were done, then I think that'd be great.
Yeah. I agree with you that the recommendations need some finalization. And to the extent that that needs to be done, my question would be, should it be done in the subgroups, or should it be moved to the large group where others who may in fact have something to offer to it can also offer before they become more finalized?
Yeah, I think it's basically the same if we can do it either way.
Right.
Okay.
Based on that, do we have
Commissioner
Second.
Dwight has addition.
Okay, go ahead.
No?
It was just, if we're on discussion, I was just going to add that I do think save some, if there's any cleaning up of the recommendations or getting into a common format, that at this point it would be good for us to have conversation together, particularly even at the last public town hall as people were asking questions. We even noted some cases where there are recommendations across, because the articles speak to each other, where there is some commonality. So I do think if we went to that twice a month meeting schedule with space for any special meetings that are needed, that this is the point where we really need to put our heads together and get clear and start to prioritize.
Right. We don't have a second yet, though.
Right.
Right, we're still in
Second.
discussion. So could we give some
There's a second.
ideal?
Okay, there's
Thank
a
you for the second. Could we give some idea of what the formatting would look like so that we could have a clear motion that has specific dates, times, and frames of what the 2 meetings a month would look like for forward planning?
One meeting would occur here at the Kennedy Hall, the way that it is currently. The second meeting, we have an option, and the option would be to have another public meeting at a time to be arranged down here at City Hall or a similar place. Or the second might be to have a time-limited call by Zoom. And I did not specify one or the other because I think we're going to have to do some schedule coordination to be able to figure out what works the best. But my suggestion would be that that second meeting be limited, let's say, to 2 hours, so that there's a specific time frame for it, even if it's a Zoom call, that for the sake of city cable, perhaps, if we can manage it, let's say over the lunch hour, maybe 12 to 2 p.m., because there have been days when we've been doing working group meetings from 1 to 2 anyway, that might be a format that could be workable and be able to get at our goal of being able to meet together more frequently, but not run the meetings so long that it would be difficult on others who have work schedules to be able to complete their ordinary work as well.
Okay, can we amend the question to include the specifics of the format and then restate the question?
What question?
The question pertaining to removing the work groups from the current commission format.
The motion?
We need to amend the motion
Okay.
to include the format of the meetings to go forward.
Do we have a sense of what the format of the meetings would be in order to amend it? That's the question.
So my suggestion for the format would be this. We, of course, are meeting right now, like on the first Monday of the month. I would say that the second meeting would need to happen perhaps, this is just my suggestion, the third Monday or the third week of the month, maybe like a Monday or a Wednesday, and let that either be decided upon like either virtual or in person. More than likely, if it's the proposed time that Commissioner Crossland is suggesting, like if it's like in the afternoon, then it would have to be virtual. But I think that would be the most sound way in doing that.
You're saying the first and third?
The first and third
First and third.
Mondays.
And
So it
both
would be like, so it would be, let's say like today is the first, then the third would be the 15th.
Okay.
And so what you're saying is the traditional first Monday of the month would be in person. The third Monday of the month would be virtual.
Correct.
Or in person, depending on whether the group
need.
decided they needed to meet in person.
Okay.
Yeah,
So how would we go about
The
this?
standard, though, would be the second meeting of each month would be virtual unless we changed it to in.
Right.
Yes.
Fine.
Right.
So that's why I asked for the question to be restated, because it needs to.
So the question, so the motion at this point would be that we, as of this meeting, we would no longer have the work groups 1, 2, and 3 that currently exist. Instead, we will move to a twice a month full commission meeting, with the first meeting occurring on the first Monday of the month here at the Kennedy Room, and the second meeting occurring virtually unless otherwise specified on the third Monday of the month at a time to be set by the group.
How would the time be set by the group?
I wonder if some of our further discussion today is going to inform some of that
Right.
specific structure.
Yeah.
Can I offer one friendly amendment? June 15th is our charter, is our deadline from the ordinance to submit a draft slate. It doesn't have to be our final, but we need to present a draft slate.
Right.
So I'm wondering if in June, that third Monday is the 17th. So I'm wondering if for June, it might make just sense. Not that, I don't know if it has to be an amendment. Like, I think that's something we can do outside, but I just wanted to note that.
Great. Because what we're really talking about here are probably the next 2 months anyway, in terms of having this second meeting to be able to add some steam so that we can complete our charge by the deadline.
I would add that the second meeting be at the same time as the first meeting, the 4:30 time, for the sake of consistency and also for the public to be able to follow, and because surveys and things via email have been a bit of a conflict. So if we could amend the motion to keep both meetings at the 4:30 time, with the first one being in person, the second being virtual.
Okay.
All those in favor?
I think.
Oh,
We don't have a second yet, and
no, we
We
did.
do have a second down there. Mhm.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that you might want to make a caveat that to the additional in-person meetings, we would need to make sure that STL TV staff is available and
Okay.
of course.
Thank you. So Secretary Bobo, if we can proceed with the vote.
Yes, all those in favor?
Actually, I'm going to
Aye.
ask for a roll call.
Yep, roll call.
Oh,
This is a roll
gotcha,
call.
gotcha.
vote.
That's why you're the expert.
Just saying, it's a roll call. vote.
So I'll start with myself. Secretary Bobo, aye. Commissioner Crossland,
Aye.
Commissioner Garth,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheridan,
Aye.
Commissioner Intagliata. Commissioner Dwight,
Aye.
Commissioner Grant.
Aye.
Is there anyone else that's on the phone before I get to chair? No? Okay. Chair Nolan Eccles,
Aye.
the motion carries. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is consideration of commission governing documents. Secretary Bobo, Commissioner Crossland, and Commissioner Intagliata.
Yes, we have one proposed change to the rules of the commission themselves. That is, and I will read here, that special meetings of the commission, other than the 2 meetings that we just stipulated in the last motion. So special meetings of the commission may be called by at least 3 voting commission members. So all special commission meetings may be called by at least 3 voting commission members.
What's the current language?
The current language specifies that special meetings of the commission may be called by the chair or 3 voting members of the commission. It's the feeling of the commission that all of us, because we are so close to our deadlines now, want to have a consensus in terms of the meeting schedule and those meetings that we want to set. And so we want all of us to be able to have 3 of us supporting any particular special meeting.
Can I make a point of information,
Thank you.
which
Absolutely.
is this? How many requests are there pending right now for special meetings?
2.
I know we have one involving the public advocate of New York City, who, my understanding from Ms. Walsh, is willing to meet with us virtually.
Right. And that one
No,
has 3.
Chair
3.
has a number of requests. I know I've heard of some other requests, so I just want to, is that in the meeting? Is that in, so I just want to see how many meetings we're trying to schedule out here.
We have,
Yeah,
Sharon has
so there are four 5 special meeting requests pending right now. The first is with the mayor and the mayor's chief of staff and the executive director of operations. The second, and these 3 are requests of the chair. The second is with Swing Strategies and Ballot Initiative Strategy Center. And the third is with the Kansas City Charter Commission. And the next meeting is requested by Commissioner Bobo, Crossland, and Grant with the New York Office of Public Advocate. And so far, I believe Commissioner Intagliata and Chair Nolan Eccles have requested a separate ballot strategy meeting. And so I think you would need a third if your motion carries.
So we, via email, myself and Commissioner Tagliato, we agreed that he would replace the second special meeting request. And so because of the discussion on the floor, the concept of the special meetings when we began this effort or this work was to continue the knowledge base of the commission. So Commissioner Grant, I always get you guys confused. Garth and Grant. The purpose of the, I would say, cabinet meeting as requested is because of which recommendations we have. And then there was additional discussion in different work group meetings that I saw related to the ballot concern. So my special meeting requests are by way of listening to you all's requests or your desires for different information. And that is when the requests are made, in addition to other commissioners requesting special meetings, which to my knowledge, we all have the right to do so.
So there are 4 pending then with the strategy, the one with the ballot strategy being substituted for the one that Commissioner Intagliata will do. To answer your question, there are 4 outstanding requests for special meetings.
Thank you. Commissioner Dwight?
I was just going to say that, I mean, that's appreciated in that you were trying to kind of lift up things from what you were hearing. I think for me, it's just a matter of like at this moment in our time where we have so little time left, I think it's really incumbent of us to like prioritize together what those special meetings specifically need to be about. And we can even like group some of them, like really get clear on what together and specifically who we want to invite and get clear on that together so that we're using this time to the best of our and the public's ability.
So with that, I think amending the motion that as a collective body, we agree to the special meetings versus 3 individual commissioners agreeing to meeting. That would be my recommendation.
So would the staff, question. So would the staff have to reach every commissioner in order to get a special meeting scheduled?
What I would propose is that these types of special meeting votes are open to happen electronically as well, if we need to. So that kind of eliminates some of the need to reach out to everybody individually, like it could happen in a thread, but ideally we're able to kind of come to agreement at meetings and set the schedule ahead.
Point of order. Did you make a motion?
That was a discussion, but I can make it a motion.
Answer your question.
But wait a minute, we have a motion on the floor, I think, and so we would need to vote that one up or down, and then,
Or offer.
Well,
or offer
well,
the
the question is
amendment?
this. If you made the motion, are you retracting it and amending it to what he said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Retract your motion, then make the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, so I would retract my motion for at least 3 from all of us. But then your motion is that a majority of the commissioners would need to be able to support a special meeting at this point, and that they could vote electronically, but then we would need 5 in order to schedule a special meeting of any sort, which I don't mind. I'm just wanting to make sure that I understand.
Yes.
Okay?
So could you state the motion, Dwight? If you retract yours, Crossland, then I believe Dwight can state the question.
I sorry, did you have a question on that?
I think Director Ingracia had a point.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not exactly what you're talking about, but for the record, I just want to make sure everyone knew Kansas City's Charter Commission process is 5 weeks long from application opening through close. If anyone's interested in any of the research I've done on charter commissions, I'm happy to share that if it helps you make decisions on who you think it might be helpful to speak with versus not.
Oh, fair enough.
Please do. Thank you.
The motion for special meetings moving forward to be determined by a majority vote of the commission, at least 5 members signaling yes, and that vote does not have to happen at full meeting. It can also happen electronically.
I second.
Special meetings moving forward require a vote of the commissioners for a majority to schedule one, and that vote can happen either in person or digitally.
And,
So via email?
and one just request for information. Does that apply right now to the pending requests for special?
Yes, it will apply to everything going forward from April 1, and so we need 2 more supporters for the public advocate meeting.
So anything that's unscheduled would essentially have.
Right, anything that's unscheduled.
Gotcha, okay.
Same with the swing
So I will,
dates.
Commissioner Grant, for the point of information, we will go through the list that Sheena provided, and we'll do a vote here in public meeting so that we could have the opportunity to vote on all the meetings that are pending. That would address the motion on the floor. Do we have the second?
With suggested dates or just agree to the meetings?
I think that's
Just agree to the meetings
I
because.
believe there's already a survey around in our email that we could all go into and agree to, but we just want to agree to the meetings today.
Okay.
And I seconded.
Okay, can we get the individual vote, please, Secretary Bobo?
So myself, I. Commissioner Crossland,
Aye.
Commissioner Garth,
Aye.
Chair Sheridan,
Aye.
Commissioner Intagliata, Commissioner Grant,
Aye.
Commissioner Dwight,
Aye.
and Chair Nolan Eccles.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Item number 7, Development of Community Engagement Plan. Secretary Bobo, Commissioner Crossland, and Commissioner Dwight.
Yeah, as I alluded to earlier, we are concerned that we're not reaching enough individuals in the community, community representatives, to engage them in the charter reform process. The meeting last Thursday, while there was a turnout at it, seemed to have a lot of special interest group individuals. And in follow-up, Commissioner Dwight has a kind of outline of a plan that we would like to consider over the next 60 days to be able to increase community engagement at this point.
Thanks, Commissioner Crossland. Yeah, so I just put together a few thoughts on what we could utilize the remainder of our time, considering that we really only have about 4 months remaining. And I think I agree with the assessment. We've made a lot of good faith efforts to engage the public. That has been a priority for the commission since the beginning. And in outcome, there often hasn't been as much attendance in those meetings. And so in the interest of really shifting that moving forward, I have a proposal that we think of our remaining 4 months as phases. So the first phase is really about finalizing our slate of charter changes and the ballot. And the second phase is really about building awareness and educating on the proposed amendments. So for the first phase, really focusing in on how can we gather input to help us prioritize and hone the final draft ahead of that date that we select. Director Ingracia has actually informed me that we can't release a draft slate before that date. we're not actually required to release a draft slate by that date, which is a really helpful clarification. So thank you for that. But I'd love for us to pull together a list of the ward meetings, as well as any neighborhood meetings, and then for every commissioner to commit to going to at least one of those meetings between now and us putting that first set, completely voting on that first set. I think it's very possible. There are definitely enough meetings, but that could mean that we could meet 15 different, go to 15 community meetings before we do that. And that would be really a focus on engaging people to have awareness of the process, what's been done so far, and what's the purpose of the charter. And then second, to hear what their general category priorities are, and to share with them the initial amendments that we've thought of. Then process-wise, that would mean that we'd really need to get clear on our prioritization and voting process, which we haven't so far kind of finalized, and then set out, I think, a set of special issues that we really need to dive further in. Some of the things like E&A light and heavy reform. There are a couple other issues. Maybe there's some things around exactly how we want to do elections to increase public engagement opportunity. Like there's a couple meaty agenda items that I think we could prioritize and lay out for the remainder of those.
Can I pause you here for a point of clarity and information? The ward meetings, I believe the Charter Commission staff provided us with a spreadsheet of those meetings
Excellent.
several months ago. Am I correct on that?
There's a list of the community organizations.
Okay.
So there's a list of the community organizations. I'm not sure if all of them contain the meeting dates for each community organization, but there is certainly a long list of community organizations.
Okay.
They do. It contains the neighborhood meeting, a contact person, the date and time and location of most of the meetings, and I believe the ward meetings are included in there. If not, I'll double check and add them.
So they're on that spreadsheet that we do have, and then the voting process for just point of clarity, point of information. The voting process, I believe, is in our rules of order and operation pertaining to the sequence of voting that we have to do before the recommendation can be moved forward through a process. So I believe those two areas for your phase one, the Charter Commission staff have provided to us.
Yeah, I'm actually, I realize, thanks for that point of clarification. I realize my proposal kind of goes above and beyond that. We have this really excellent resource in the list, but we haven't yet made plans together for exactly how we want to engage them. So my proposal creates a timeline and a specific number of engagements that we would do to try and get a wider engagement with the public. And then on the voting part of it, we have the vaguest outline from our rules of order and from the ordinance about how many of us need to vote to approve something. Just from my experience with like processes like this, I think there's a step more specific we should maybe do to really help us to have a robust voting process, and to maybe even think about like what are the values that we're most seeking to represent or criteria to really get clear on our top slate. So that's just my proposal.
So I just want to, as you're in your first phase, because you just stated that we need to identify the ward meetings and identify the activities of those. If we could do those activities as you're going through your proposals by way of motion,
Sure.
I think we could, as a group, participate in making sure the activities are documented and we're on the same page with how we're moving forward.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. So the first motion would be that between now and June 17th, all commissioners will be part of the community engagement process by delegating themselves one of those ward meetings or neighborhood meetings or community organization meetings to attend and gather some kind of community input as well as build awareness.
Second.
Would you accept a friendly amendment that it's June 17th? We're talking April, May, June, 3 months, 2.5 months. I would like us to say 3 meetings. Each of us need to do at least 3 meetings. It's 27. We cover more distance that way. I think we need to. That's what we need to commit to do.
I love that friendly amendment. That's a great friendly amendment.
State the question.
I motion for the commission to commit to each one of us attending 3 community meetings to be pulled from the list that has been compiled and will be built upon between now and June 17th for the purpose of, 1, offering awareness building on process, purpose, and future, and then 2, to gather input on their priorities and amendments.
Previous role.
Great. Commissioner Bobo, aye. Commissioner Crossland?
Point of order, when someone says previous role, what that means is it's the same vote that the way it was the
Oh,
last
gotcha.
time. That's
Gotcha.
why I said previous role.
Excellent. Love that. Love efficiency.
It's a way of fast tracking.
Thank you.
Folks, don't ever read Robert's Rules of Order unless you want a good night's sleep. I've read this thing like cover to cover.
So Commissioner Garth, do I?
Previous rule, next point of order.
Yes.
If it's agreed by the chair, then
Okay.
I just have a
Yep.
point of information. Where are the 3 meetings being selected from?
They'll be pulled from a list that I'm happy to support. Well, I know it exists, and I'm happy to add on, and I have a couple of community resources that'll list out the ward meetings, neighborhood association meetings, and then a set of other community meetings that are happening.
And what I simply suggest as a process is that when the list is distributed to all of us,
We use a Google Sheet, and we,
if it's a Google Sheet, that we just pick our 3 meetings, and whoever gets the first 3, if I picked your neighborhood, you better do it quick, because if I picked your neighborhood, then you got to pick another one instead.
So the list is out there. It is in your Google Drive. It is in the communications folder, and there is a like the first column of the list says commissioner, and so you can just go in there and type your name on the line that you want to be, you want to represent the commission at that meeting.
Could I
thank you,
request?
and I'm happy to take that process of taking that list, writing out instructions, and sending it out to everyone.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I request that we have, that communications or whoever takes the information we have and comes up with a 1-page flyer that we can use, that we can leave behind at these meetings that have some of the pertinent information on it?
I believe-
Does it exist already, and
Requested.
I just need to know where it is, or could somebody develop it?
And I think we have some materials, and I'd be willing to work with the counselor's office staff to make it.
It's also attached to the monthly summary email that gets sent out by the Charter Commission staff. At the bottom, it has the corresponding information, the press release, the email that gets sent out to everyone on our list per motion that we approved. In addition to, I've been seeing a flyer at the bottom of our monthly follow-up emails as well. So we're doing the Secretary Bobo, the individual commissioner vote at this time pertaining to the motion on the.
I think my understanding is that because
that was the point of previous order or previous
Okay.
role. So that moves it along.
So
Okay.
just so I'm clear, so Commissioner Dwight is going to provide us with the list. I would ask if he can turn it in to a simple spreadsheet so we can put a check mark for all 3 meetings. So it'll say commissioners across the top with the group, and then you can go for your 3. That would be great. And then I would recommend, as part of this, that each commissioner email the organization, ask if they can attend, send the document that Commissioner Dwight just requested, and then go out there and do that talk. But in that, because it'll be much more successful that way. Fair enough?
Yep, absolutely.
Great.
Isn't collaboration fun, kids?
Commissioner Dwight, the next phase or the next item, I believe, is the voting process.
Yes, so I would propose that we, I think there's like a couple steps that I would propose for the voting, that we need a repository for all the changes, like one place where all of them live. And I think that would be a place to really mark where there's areas of duplication or overlap. I know there's a couple of those, and there's a couple of spaces where we need to make some decisions. Like we actually need to have some conversation as a commission before we can vote on something. Because I think having that kind of run through of these, and I feel like I'm volunteering myself for
Yes, you are. Keep going.
a lot of stuff, but I saw the look there. I saw the look. Because then that could really help us identify a set of what major discussions we need to have, and we could even talk and propose some of those today, because then we can actually like slot those into those meetings from now until whenever we want to vote on. And that's something that we can message to the public too, so they know, okay, they're really going to talk about Department of Transportation. I don't think that's going to be one, because I think there's been a lot of agreement on that, but I'm just giving an example.
I agree with you. In fact, just because we don't have the work groups doesn't mean that there aren't interests that need to be clustered. E&A, heavy, light, whatever it is, becomes one bundle. Personnel is clearly a bundle, and there are others. And so one of the things I'd like to see us do today is to identify at least which bundles we're going to address at our meeting on the 15th and also our meeting at the next month.
Because that's on the other aspects of the agenda. You discuss now is on the other aspects of the agenda. He's speaking specifically to the voting process.
No, I'm talking about subject areas, themed areas that we would be discussing.
It's already on the agenda for discussion.
Okay.
But that's like a thing that we would do later on the agenda today. I agree. I think that also gives us a chance to, I know the chair has proposed a couple themes that are most important to us, but I don't know that we've really had the chance to like fully discuss together like what those most important themes are. I really think doing that would be both good for like public messaging and would be really helpful too once the ballot initiative actually goes up for us to have been, and this is how we prioritized it. So I think having that conversation, and that's more of the kind of criteria like I'm thinking about when it comes to, then we're voting like based off of something.
So is there a actual voting process you want us to entertain a motion on today? Or just discussion? That's fine.
I'm more kind of offering up a set of like principles for how we do it, and I would love to see if that aligns, and then maybe we can see if there is a motion.
Okay.
But then we maybe, once we've themed some of the different meetings, then we can also know, so I think some of these we maybe additional education or different items, and that could like be like, okay, we need testimony at this meeting, and then maybe we really save like 2 meetings for voting, because I think it will take 2 meetings.
I agree. I agree with that information.
If we, that it would take 2 meetings to get through all the voting on the amendments for at least a slate.
Because today we're discussing what we've come to date regarding the work group meetings and where we are with recommendations. The next 2 meetings, as he just outlined, will pretty much be the timelined months for us to move down the timeline. So maybe Commissioner Dwight, yes, I'm tasking you with things, but if you could possibly provide, in addition to your plan, a timeline on what you think the voting process should look like, so we can add it to the rules of order and procedure, so it won't be so vague. I too believe that the rules of order and procedure are pretty vague, so if we could add that language to it, next month in the public meeting, we're having another one in 2 weeks, so in the next meeting where we're all together, we could entertain a motion regarding that timeline, regarding the voting process.
Sure.
Okay.
I also think it would be really good in that in between time before that slate for 1 or 2 commissioners to go on Channel 5, to go on St. Louis Public Radio, just from an informational standpoint, just to say like, not a long thing, just to be like, this is happening. Know that it's happening. It's going to be on the ballot coming up. Come to our next public forum. which I would propose we do a public forum after we have the draft slate. So we do our voting. So I guess what I'm saying is the ordinance language says this is how commissioners submit something for the ballot. I'm saying there's an intermediate step. We need to vote to submit things to a draft slate, have a public forum with that draft slate, finalize it together, have that official ordinance vote, and that's what goes to BOE, the Board of Elections.
Okay. Were there any other, did you share your marketing plan or your, community engagement plan with the total commission?
It's only something that I kind of wrote out for myself, but I can kind of finalize it more. Like right now, they're just personal notes, though I do have kind of like a breakdown of the phases and a draft schedule, but let me clean it up and then send it out
Okay.
as a possibility.
Would everybody be okay with receiving the community engagement plan via email?
I would prefer that. I was just going to like, let's
Yeah.
present that and then we can
Yes.
move
So we'll
forward on it.
revisit it again in the 2 weeks when we meet as a group again virtually and vote on the adoption of the plan.
Yep, perfect.
But in the meantime, Commissioner Dwight will have the spreadsheet with checks, marks, and all that kind of stuff will proceed so that we are set up and ready to go for the May meetings of a lot of the different organizations.
And I'm willing to raise my hand and help you with that.
Thank you.
Welcome. I know that that's a big undertaking, and thank you for your initiative on this so far.
Also, Commissioner Dwight, please be advised, the start of that spreadsheet has already begun by the Charter Commission staff, so please do not redo. What you don't have to, just, use their format and add to it as you need for that process. In the next meeting, we will adopt that community engagement process and plan for the next 2 meetings. The going back through the agenda, if there is no additional discussion.
The only thing that we haven't done with regards to these extra items here is that I believe you said that we would go through the special meeting schedule that was set up and vote to see whether we had a majority for the different
That's
special meetings.
another agenda item. So I'm getting to that another agenda item.
That's
Yeah.
that would be now because it was part of the special meeting schedule.
Pertaining to the development of the community engagement plan?
No, pertaining to the special meetings that Counselor Hamilton mentioned earlier, the 4 meetings that had been requested. And our need now to be able to have a majority of the commission approve each one.
That I'm going to address in the next agenda item. So what I planned to do was each item agenda number 4, discussion regarding articles, drafts, and public comment. In this section, I believe each work group, if to my knowledge, the 4 meetings have come from different work groups. And in that forum, they can identify with Sheena, who's not present right now, the 4 meetings, and we can vote on them. So my concept for doing that was to do that within the work group meeting, outlined in agenda item number 4. But it doesn't say, based on the agenda, that it has to be done in this agenda item. So for the sake of time, we're going to move through the agenda. We've done agenda item 5, 6, and 7. Thank you. So going back to the top of the agenda, where we are in the chair's report, I want to entertain motions for a few things. And the first one, in addition to the community engagement plan, is to have discussion pertaining to the public hearing for April. So if we could begin to have discussion pertaining to an appropriate date and time for April's public hearing. I've identified some locations that I believe we could have the public hearing at for April.
Is it discussion on the motion?
I want to open it for discussion pertaining to the dates for April 1st before entertaining a motion.
I wonder if we if another public forum is not the best priority, all of our meetings are public meetings and opportunities to engage the public, but I wonder if having another public forum in that style this month is not actually the best, most meaningful engagement of community. Like, I wonder if our second meeting this month, as well as the individual meetings, 3 per, that we're going to be doing with Ward and other community organizations, is a better pulling together. And then there'll be a point either in May or June where another forum makes sense. I just think it's really essential to have a forum around a specific purpose that we're seeking from community, like to reflect back off. And I don't know what that would be for.
I would like to hear from other commissioners and also members of the public if you believe having another hearing at this time is appropriate or not, and all of those types of things. So I would like to hear from the public about whether we should or should not have another hearing this month and delay it until the next month or the month after, while we have this discussion on the floor. Because I've gotten the receipt that we should continue to have hearings, but per Commissioner DeWhite's concern, it may be a bit redundant to continue to have them if we haven't determined what that looks like. Commissioner Grant.
Yeah, I would concur with Commissioner Dwight's concerns. I think, one, we are really getting stretched for time if we start to have all these meetings. And 2, I enjoy seeing all the people here at our meetings. Every month, they're also the same people who came to our public hearing, which I really appreciate. I pretty much understand their points. I think we need, I wouldn't say disappointed, but I wish there were more people who'd come to our public hearing. It didn't happen. We need to try a new approach. I think Commissioner Dwight's, I think we should try that alternative rather than just having another public hearing this month.
And if I could add, I think we have a really big opportunity to build like grassroots momentum up to another hearing. So if we set a hearing out in the future, 2 months, 3 months from now, and we can message it as this is when we'll have the draft slate of recommendations or something, and then that's something that every commissioner can bring to every community organization that they go to, that can really build momentum up towards like a different strategy towards turnout at a hearing.
I agree
think we
as
just
well.
want to make sure we schedule the third one. I think by the rules of order operation, we have to have 3. And so I just wanted to open the discussion of when it would occur. But if we could, if there are any members of the public that have opposition to the public hearing or not. We're going to bring the mic to you.
One reason why you haven't had attendance is because it has not been advertised at all, okay? So if you're going to have these other things, you've got to do it a drastically different way. Secondly, I agree with you if you have something with meat on its bones to discuss. Changing the mayor's office, changing the way we do services, changing the comptroller's office. People will show up if there is something specific that they're interested in. The ground needs to be paved for it, and that includes getting on important media shows where you have different, diverse kinds of audiences. To have a public hearing this month, I think, is a total waste of time.
I really agree. And to that point of where you have a really specific topic, if we get to those themes or buckets that we need to work through and we say, meeting number 1 in May is about this issue, that makes it easy for us to advertise to the public.
So then, go ahead.
I just want to agree with Kathy. I think the faster you all get out in the community, the more people will start to follow you. I also think you don't necessarily, normally, when you go to a ward or neighborhood meeting, they like to put you on the agenda and all of that sort of madness. I think the work that people know could go on from you all will mean all you have to do is show up and say, we're here from the Charter Commission. Oh, did you want spot 1 or spot 2? So I wouldn't necessarily get so caught up in the process of, well, we've got to let them know we're coming. Yeah, they want to know, but they want to hear from you. And because I've been going to ward neighborhood meetings for 22 plus years, I can tell you that's an audience that you really need to focus on. Yeah, we're here, but we're hired guns, so to speak. The neighborhoods, the wards, the committee meetings, all those folks want to hear from you and find out at very, very least, well, what are they doing and what are they thinking about? So I would encourage you, as many meetings as you all can attend in the next 30, 45 days, try and do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The motion I would like to entertain is then pertaining to location for whenever we decide the next public hearing is going to be. I've identified 3 places in the northern part of St. Louis: Matthew Dickey's Boys and Girls Club, Herbert Hoover Boys and Girls Club, or Fallon Park YMCA for the next public hearing whenever we decide that that is. So the motion I would like to entertain is pertaining to location for the next public hearing.
Could I offer, could I add one place to it? The community center in Dutchtown. Just if we're thinking about kind of like historically not reached like segments, the largest percent of Black residents live in South City around Dutchtown. So I think that's a good to have both those as options.
Thank you. Sheena, you grabbed the mic.
I was just going to say, we did reach out to, I believe it was O'Fallon Park YMCA. Am I right about that, Charter Commission staff, that we had reached out to the O'Fallon Park YMCA?
They're great.
And they were already lined up to host a public hearing based on our last thing, but the work group or the breakout rooms were better at the International Institute. And so that's why we went with that particular, but we do have contact and communication with O'Fallon Park already.
I believe since we're not doing the work group format anymore, that it would be best appropriate to follow up with, so maybe I'll rephrase my question. So I would like to entertain a motion for the next public hearing to be conducted at O'Fallon Park YMCA when it occurs.
So second.
Secretary Bobo, if you could be, does she begin the vote at this time?
She can.
Thank you.
I would only like to add a friendly amendment if possible and say at O'Fallon YMCA or a commensurate organization should there be a scheduling challenge. I don't want to back the Charter Commission into a situation where our best date and the location don't work.
So as a point of clarification, are you asking that we have a backup in case if that?
Right.
Okay, just want to make sure we have that understood. Then the backup would be Commissioner Dwight's suggestion would be the one in Dutchtown.
I will amend the question to add the alternative as the International Institute in the event that the O'Fallon Park YMCA is not available when we decide when the next public hearing is going to be. Thank you.
And
Well,
we would,
I think we were talking about Dutchtown, not the International Institute, right?
Dutchtown Community Center?
yes, community center,
Okay.
yeah. I have one more friendly amendment.
Go ahead.
From both Commissioner Grant and me, which is, could we actually just say that it will happen within we'll plan for it to happen within a few weeks after the draft slate is done. That way we can get moving on checking about availability and get a date on the calendar, and then we can actually have a registration link and flyer for
June?
that.
I got a note so I can add it to my motion.
I think it probably is enough to say, because I think there's another question we have to answer, which is when are we planning to do the draft slate? But I think it's enough if we just say we, for the sake of this motion, right after the creation of that draft slate.
So I'm amending again, Commissioner Garth. I would like to entertain a motion that the next public hearing be scheduled for June tentatively at the O'Fallon Park YMCA, with the alternative location being the Dutchtown Community Center in the event that O'Fallon Park YMCA is not available. Secretary Bobo, we are prepared for the vote.
Commissioner Bobo, nay. Commissioner Crossland? Aye. Commissioner Garth?
Aye.
Commissioner Grant?
Aye.
Commissioner Dwight?
Aye.
Commissioner Intagliata? Chair Sheridan?
Aye.
And Chair Nolan Eccles.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to move into the actual final work group discussions. For the sake of the discussions, if there are members of the public who would like to add to the discussion, please find your way to the microphone in order to contribute to the discussions by way of their title. We're going to have work group 1, Public Service and Finance, Commissioner Garth, Grant, and Dwight, Alderman Ballmer, and Director Milberg. The articles to be discussed are Department of Finance, Taxes, and Department of Public Works. My apologies.
Sure. So the first thing I'd like to do is to call for a special meeting with, which Ms. Walsh is working to arrange with the Public Advocate's Office in New York City, so we can obtain information about the functions of the public advocate, what responsibilities they exercise, what works and what doesn't work with their office, because our heavy E&A reform draws upon that office as an example.
Could I ask a question? Is there any chance that could happen at one of the meetings that we have coming up versus an additional?
I am not sure what Ms. Walsh has just told me, that they're in communication with the office, that the public advocate is willing to speak to us virtually. When or where that happens, I would say, like, pursuant to what we talked about before, we just need a majority, and then we'll get it. We'll try to get it set for whatever time.
Well, I so move.
Second, Sheridan.
Thank you.
Another roll.
Does it have to be roll or?
Does it have to be roll, Commissioner Garden?
I'm going to say yes, there has to be a roll call for that. So, roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Bobo, aye. Commissioner Crossland?
Aye.
Commissioner Garth?
Aye.
Commissioner Intagliata? Aye. Commissioner Grant?
Aye.
Commissioner Dwight?
Aye.
Vice Chair Sheridan?
Aye.
Thank you. Chair Nolan Eccles?
Aye.
The motion carries.
Is that all you guys wanted to?
Well, I don't, we have nothing really new to present from our work group other than what was recounted at the public hearing last Thursday, unless Commissioner Dwight or Commissioner Garth would want to add anything.
This isn't necessarily for us to discuss today, but something maybe for the future is just that we have a set of recommendations that our work group kind of like approved to go to the full commission. And then separately, we have a set of recommendations that were submitted to us by Director or President Bradley of the Board of Public Service that we just forwarded along, but weren't necessarily, we didn't approve them. So I think that's just something to figure out what we need to do with those in the future.
Actually, one other thing is I have, it was not included in the meeting packet for our public meeting last Thursday, but I have circulated the summary of the potential changes to BPS, which, by the way, there's a little confusion about whether there's a recommendation or not recommendation. I've included, for instance, Rich Badley's recommendation, which he gave to us directly. The working group has not voted one way or the other on Rich Bradley's recommendations. On the other remaining ones, the work group would recommend those, including, for instance, amending the $5,000 limit for purchases and to 10,000, or that set by the.
Well, Commissioner Grant, I don't believe that with us as only being a 3-person work group, we could really vote on anything. That's against the rules.
I think he just means like an unofficial vote
Just-
out of work
I
group.
just want to get the language correct because there are people listening.
So, did Commissioner Grant, did your group reach consensus on the proposal for?
Use those words.
Are you saying E&A?
No, your particular public employees?
No.
Oh.
Okay,
That's not
so
part of
that's,
what this is just related, my previous comment just now, just related to the BPS.
so how are you treating then the other one?
What's the other one?
The
The one on
one that you brought on
bargaining.
public employees?
That's in work group three's purview, so he's
Yes.
going to discuss it in work group 3. Is that what you're speaking to, Commissioner Tagliato?
The Commissioner Grant brought a charter amendment proposal on public employees having.
That's purely mine. That's,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is not related to the work group.
It was like an individual submission, and then it got.
Fair enough. How will we deal with that then?
So we're going to discuss it later on in the agenda at work group 3, and then we'll all discuss it just like all the rest of the recommendations. So at this point, we're discussing the 3 itemized articles assigned to work group 3
Okay.
that they have collaboratively agreed on. The
Can-
proposal that Commissioner Grant put forth is in the purview of work 3, and that's where he's presenting his proposal there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Madam
Right.
Chair, can I ask for some clarification? Because I find this very confusing, and I would appreciate your take on this, why it's been structured the way it has. The personnel amendment, the proposal that Commissioner Grant has provided, while it is within personnel, he is in group 1, and so it has created some difficulty in terms of understanding, particularly during the work group session, not having the person who supported it within the particular work group itself. And I'm not sure I understand, because precedent earlier was that you presented work group 1 and 2 proposals within work group 3 rather than within work group 1 and work group 2. And so I don't really know why this particular proposal is being placed in work group 3 when perhaps it should just remain in 1, where the knowledgeable individual is.
So I'll respond. The sake and the purpose of it being a work group 3 discussion and article is because it's directly related and or impacted by the Department of Personnel. The article pertaining to finance or taxes or public works is not the article that Commissioner Grant, you can speak to it, outlined where he would like the recommended proposal to be, or is that not in the purview of what you proposed? And so the purpose of identifying and communicating the proposals and recommendations where they're grouped is so that they can be followed. And so people know where they are and what's pertaining to them. So that is why that was done that way. And that's why it's within the purview of work group 3. If there is an article that your proposal is addressing that's outside, that's in work 1, I would like to know about it. I don't believe so.
So, no, I appreciate your concern, Ms. Crosland. I'll just wait to present it today when we get to work group 3. I mean, we are sort of getting siloed.
Yeah.
But I will work with what, it doesn't really make a difference to me.
Yeah.
I'll wait till we get to work.
Well, and the truth of the matter is that the work groups per se don't exist anymore anyway. And so we are structurally adhering to something now in this presentation that we actually closed out earlier in the meeting.
So on your agenda, we're in agenda item number 4, and it is in fact still present here. It was not removed prior to the printing of the agenda that everyone is following. So I'm staying within the agenda that's listed here for point of clarity.
But for point of order, because a vote was made in which that dissolved that now supersedes what's on the paper.
Okay, and that's fine. So how would we like to proceed with the remaining articles that still have to be addressed? Because I still have, or I believe we still have discussion pertaining to the other articles that are listed.
Well, I suggest that Commissioner Grant go ahead and talk about his item now, since there's no formal bundling that has occurred yet until we establish it again. There are
Commissioner,
no
would you
work
like to
groups, et cetera.
Now or at that point? What would you like to do?
I appreciate it. I'll just wait till work group 3.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Dwight, did you have anything else to add? I saw your mic. Okay. Did we get any closer to the discussion on whether you guys were going with the lighter reform or the heavy reform after the public hearing discussion?
So I think this is related to some of the ways that other work groups have done it too, for some things that are pretty monumental. Our work group supported the light, like we think that's a floor. Several of us supported the heavy, but it wasn't a unanimous support. So we wanted to forward it all to the commission because we thought it needed a commission discussion. Several of us do support it, like I said, but that's why we forwarded both of them. The light is a floor.
Okay.
But
We got a range of responses from this is the heavy reform, meaning this is a good idea, to it's not a good idea. But I think that's something that needs at this point the full commission's debate.
And would propose it being one of those topic themes
Yes.
that we can really use discussion time in a meeting.
So if we could at this time discuss the light or heavy forum pertaining to the Board of E&A as it is an agenda item, or not agenda item, sorry, point of discussion for.
I think our work group would actually prefer to schedule it for one of the future meetings, and then we can come prepared to have a discussion on it. We think it's important to, but I don't think we're adequately prepared to have what it deserves at this moment.
Well, I concur also, since it's something that's within our subject area. So let me just piggyback on that right now rather than wait and talk about it later, to say that from our point of view, we really can't move forward on a healthy discussion until we've had a chance, for instance, to talk with the Office of Public Advocate and some other leadership that can help us to understand which direction might make sense.
And so that's where I would really think it would be good if we were like, that first April meeting, we're going to talk about E&A light heavy, and let's get the public advocate to come to that meeting so we have all the information together to really have a strong discussion.
So I think this goes to back to our discussion about having more frequent meetings. We are going to have to we're not prepared to do a full discussion today, but we are going to have to, at upcoming meetings, essentially put on the floor each proposal and be like, we need as a full commission to discuss this, and what is the public's input on this, because we're very soon going to need to start drafting one way or the other on these proposals.
And it would really allow us to advertise it to the public so they know, expect in this meeting to talk about these things. So maybe if we are going with this work group, kind of if each work group could also say, hey, here's one or two topics that from our work group that we think really merits that or needs that larger commission dedicated discussion time.
Can we get you all's work group to entertain a motion pertaining to what items you want to speak to or discuss or debate specifically at the next meeting?
I don't know that we necessarily need a motion for that as much as we compile that list together, and then at the end, sure, we can do a motion to say, this is the slate of meetings. So maybe it's more if we just name together what those two or so that we think merit.
Would the
full
Charter Commission staff continue to put these listed articles on the agenda for the next meeting?
No.
Okay. Okay.
After we kind of go through it together, we'd then have the set of topics, and then we could lay those out across the next meetings. And that would be what goes on the agenda.
Okay.
It does has that sound to people.
Okay. I just want to make sure that they have how you all want to proceed with which agenda items or articles you want to discuss. Okay. Is there any more discussion for the public service and finance articles that have been listed as areas of recommendation or concern? Any members of the public with comment or commentary pertaining to the articles for the Department of Finance, taxes, or public work before we move forward? Thank you. Yes, it is. You could just use the mic that's there. Yeah. No, you could just push the button.
Good afternoon, man.
However, for the sake of record, please state your name.
I was gonna do that. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Charles Bryson. I thank you all commissioners for the work that you do. I'll be brief. I want to give you some things to, I guess, look at. City of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the department, which is Department of Transportation, is responsible for the transportation of people and goods throughout the city of Pittsburgh and manages the operations and access of the public right-of-way, the sidewalks, curbs, streets, bridges that make up our network. Then you have the City of Chicago. City Department of Transportation is responsible for public way infrastructure, including planning, design, construction, maintenance, and management. Hoboken, New Jersey. The department is responsible for the management of all municipal transportation and parking services. So you have three institutions that throughout the country, at the very least, do all things directly related to transportation of their cities. The other thing I want to say is I hope that you all are considering a full-fledged Department of Transportation, that all duties and responsibilities are part of their process. I've heard some language throughout the community that, well, we can't do this now. We can't do this now. I would say you're absolutely right. You cannot do that now. But the reasons why is because of all the things that are going on. ARPA funding, which will end on December 31st of 2026. You've got the Transportation Mobility Plan. You have other things that are going on. So no, I would never suggested that it be done immediately. However, you all can put on the ballot the day, date, and time to which a transportation department would be online. So I would suggest, because that would allow several things to take place. Number one, the mayor's office and the departments could get together and begin to plan for that day, date, and time. That you're going to run up against all these other things that have to be finalized. You're also going to have to run against the budget. And by the way, the only way this succeeds if the Board of Aldermen come to grips with the need for ward capital be distributed to a Department of Transportation instead of the wards. So I will suggest July 1st, 2027 as the date that you all put on the documents to say, this is when we believe a Department of Transportation can happen. And if anybody tells you you can't do that, remember this. It took, I believe, 10 years that the Board of Aldermen said, we're going to go down by law, by vote from 28 to 14. It is possible. It is doable. I recommend it for all the reasons stated. Let's make this decision together and let it make sense. And I will answer any questions, Madam Chair, answer any questions that you all might have.
Thank you. Commissioners?
I have a quick question. Just for my own records keeping, you mentioned a date that you were proposing. Can you state that one more time?
July 1st, 2027. Okay. That would allow for several things. All the ARPA money, the transportation plan. It'll also allow for the new budget to start, which would also then mean personnel department will have had an opportunity to decide what staffing would need to take place from a Department of Transportation standpoint as opposed to a Department of Streets. So that would allow all those things to occur, as well as, once again, we need to deal with ward capital and where it goes. So all those things could take place. And on June, did I say that right? July 1st,
Right.
2027, we would have, we could have everything in place, ready to go.
Because of the budget, yeah, got
Yes.
it.
So Charles, just to be clear, you would want, under this effective date, July 1, 2027, you would want budgeting, though, to contemplate the existence of this new Department of Transportation as of that date. So actually, the budgeting in early 2027 would have to, okay.
But the budget would come in, our budget cycle is July to June. So July 1st of 2027, that would come into play. The other thing is, it would allow, one of the things that I remember is there were people at the Board of Aldermen who constantly asked for there be a committee established so that they begin the process of moving from 28 to 14. Well, that never happened. And luckily, we had some wonderful alder people in place who helped make it happen in a real short window. I think this gives us enough time to be able to make those changes necessary as a full-fledged city and have the mayor's office assign a committee to do that practice.
One more clarifying question. You mentioned ward capital. So is it kind of the recommendation from your expertise and the group's expertise proposing around this that bundling, the Department of Transportation would only be most effective if there was a change to ward capital as well, to how that's allocated?
Well, because ward capital is distributed through a board bill, you all don't have quote unquote control over that. Any way you can sneak that language in there would be helpful, but you all don't have the ability to do that.
No, that's helpful.
Sorry, I
But
should have
it's-
said that.
What are you suggesting, sir?
I'm sorry. Never mind. Strike the last comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this time?
Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have articles, initiative, Board of Aldermen, and elections up for discussion at this time.
Well, we presented at the public hearing and got 6 detailed pieces of feedback, which we put on the record that night. The goal from there is to get those written up, brought back to the other work group commissioners, so all three of us will reach consensus on changes, emendations, whatever, and then bring back those changes or let stand our recommendations as they are now. At this time, can I make a motion for a ballot strategy meeting? Okay, I'd like to make a motion for a ballot strategy meeting with local experts who can come and talk about the best way to package a series of recommendations, or the options available. And I'd like to do that during our meeting on April 15th.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Just a quick question.
Second.
How long do you expect this presentation to last?
It could last 45 minutes to an hour pretty easily, Anna.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a fairly consequential issue. There's a couple folks who have successfully run initiatives like this in the city. I'd like to hear from them and get a sense of what the options that you face are. So, yeah.
Well, the reason I asked if it's going to run 45 minutes or an hour, does it make sense for us to have a separate 1 hour Zoom meeting with them as opposed to putting it into the meeting where we may have other agenda items, including, movement toward vote on these
I think
bundles?
it probably does make sense, but I think that since we're having a meeting on April 15th, and I don't think we have any agenda items on it now.
Well, we haven't gotten to group 3 yet, but anyway.
Pardon me?
We haven't gotten to group 3 yet.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But I just thought it would be a good thing to do. We can certainly have a second or third or fourth topic.
Well, would you entertain a friendly amendment which simply said at the April 15th meeting or another date if needed or something like that?
Yes,
Okay.
of course. No, I'd be
Thank
happy
you.
to. Sure.
Okay.
I second that, the motion on the table.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Secretary Bobo, the vote, please.
Yes. Myself, Commissioner Bobo, aye. Commissioner Crossland,
Aye.
Commissioner Garth,
Abstain?
Commissioner Grant,
Aye.
Commissioner Tagliata,
Aye.
Commissioner Dwight,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sheridan,
Aye.
Commissioner Nolan Eccles.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tagliata. The next items on the agenda, Director of Personnel, Civil Service, Commissioner Grant's labor proposal, and Director of Department of Personnel, Sonia Jenkins Gray's presentation.
As the next, we had an opportunity to hear from a variety of special interest group individuals at the meeting this last Thursday and reported it back about that to the larger group. And so it's part of the recordings of the evening already. So I won't go through all of those details. Instead, I would make one motion, and that is that we had initially intended, as part of our working group, to have a follow-up meeting with Director Sonia Jenkins Gray, who is the Director of Personnel, to ask some follow-up questions to her report and different aspects of personnel and how they might interface with proposed changes that might come about if there were no E&A and we were instead restructuring the city. Instead of doing that with the small group, what I thought made more sense, and what I suggest to you tonight, hi Sonia, hi Commissioner Gray, I didn't realize you were going to be on the call tonight, but what I was going to suggest was, she asked She was happy to speak with us on follow-up, but asked that we provide questions in advance so that she would be able to speak to the specific topics that we were most interested in, which I thought was great. But then I thought it made more sense for the entire group to have that opportunity, not just our working group. So my proposal is that we not force Director Gray to do her presentation twice, but instead we formally schedule her for our April 15th meeting. And that gives all of us then the next week to put together our questions and submit them to her so that she can address a variety of concerns that we have at once versus having to do it in steps.
Director Jenkins Gray, what are your thoughts?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Commissioner Crossland, thank you for that sensitivity around not having the questions ready, but I am prepared and I'm quite comfortable if there are any questions that you would like to ask, that I can do that tonight. Or if you think it's best to wait until the 15th, I'm okay then too. I can be pretty flexible.
From my perspective, the questions pertaining to Director Jenkins Gray from the work group have been already postponed, which is why I believe she was added to this agenda. And because of a last postponing, there were questions that came up at the public hearing, particular to what I believe Director Gray is prepared to present to on today. So we're all here currently as a total commission, and along with members of the public that may additionally have questions for Director Gray. So if Director Gray is prepared to present, I believe that she, as well as Commissioner Grant, should present per the agenda today.
If there's kind of two sets of questions and there's the opportunity to streamline it and have that, because personally, I'm not even sure of the exact set of recommendations we're considering between and all of that. So in my opinion, I wonder if it's better to go with what Commissioner Crossland said, have it at the next meeting, have a chance for the questions to be circulated, both with us and for the director, and to be really clear about what we're discussing together. But what others think?
Oh, one point of clarification, please. I will not be available on the 15th. So I don't know if there is another date or time that I might be able to meet if we don't do it tonight.
Yeah. Part of the challenge is that the aspects of personnel might look different depending on whether we're in an ENA light or an ENA heavy environment. And so in some ways, some of the questions that arise about personnel may not become evident until further into our process. So from that point of view, I would feel comfortable in waiting a meeting or two to be able to talk with you because I think that we're going to find that there are different combinations and permutations to personnel depending on how we want to go with that one critical question.
I can, Commission, provide a bit of clarity with regards to the Department of Personnel and its relationship with the ENA. We have very little interaction with ENA on a regular basis. Our involvement with them really only comes from a standpoint of notification. If positions have been changed on the table of organization, or if positions have been added. Other than that, the Department of Personnel really does not interact with the ENA. Unless Attorney City Councilor Hamilton has a different perspective that I did not share, but based off of my knowledge and interaction with them, it's pretty minimal.
Yeah, I agree with you about that and appreciate that. clarification. I think that the issues are not what happens now, but what might have to happen if there was a substantial change. That would be more of what we would want to be able to discuss. If, for instance, there are, these other changes. So that's the question.
And that is where I'm going to actually pop in and just remind everyone of what Commissioner Dwight has already spoken of, where this could be an opportunity to where we can have a themed meeting where this is centered around. And that way, when we have enough around to actually field the questions, to have a robust discussion about it, I just don't want to shoot now and then it's haphazard. You get what I'm trying to say. Tongue-tied. Yeah, I got tongue-tied. So I would say that that would be a very good theme in discussion with, that'd be a good themed meeting to discuss with that and to have a robust discussion around that. So
I think to add to that is why I want to entertain the motion to have the cabinet members that I requested conduct a special meeting in alignment with what's being discussed now, is why it's important to have the executive members present so that we as a commission know what the involvement or lack thereof is with certain things. So there isn't an assumption that all the recommendations that we're putting forth interact or interchange or affect. We actually know verbatim if they affect or not. So that was the total reasoning for the request of the special meeting from the cabinet members, because some of what we're requesting actually impacts the cabinet and not the director of personnel or the Department of Public Works and some of these other areas. And I believe that the executive branch of the city can speak to some of those areas of concerns or questions where Director Jenkins Gray may not be the appropriate person to answer said question based on said focus. So at this time, I would like to entertain the motion for the cabinet members, which would be the mayor, the executive director of operations, and I believe the chief of staff or any other assigned appointees to be present at the meeting that Director Jenkins Gray will be present at for a panel discussion for the commission pertaining to any conflicts, so to speak, with the recommendations that we have based on the discussion we're having now.
Can I ask a question? We did have a chance, the mayor did speak to Work Group 3, right? And we had a chance to speak with some of the different department heads, right? So from my perspective, I don't see as clear of a indication or clear set of questions as with some of the other topics that we've named. We really need a next item.
Let me give some point of clarity. The League of Women Voters here has requested that we consider the city administrator focus for recommendation. The only other individuals that could speak to the capacity of that space or the lack thereof, cabinet in the current function, in its current function. Director Gray cannot speak to the streamlined or strategic method of adding said function to our city currently. And some of the other aspects of the recommendations that we're looking at from the public and from ourselves, that executive body would be, I believe, the best body to give us any kind of feedback pertaining to the language, the approach, the concept, how it impacts or doesn't other facets or other aspects. And I even wanted the League of Women Voters, I believe it's Kathleen, not Nancy, to speak to that component of things. So it may not be that we as a commission have something that needs to be communicated to the cabinet, but some of the recommendations that have come from members of the public, the only appropriate responses or answers to those questions, or if it should be a recommendation, would probably come from that body of people.
Thanks for clarifying. I guess to me, it sounds like the more immediate need is a presentation from the League of Women Voters, and similar to the public advocate, if there is a model of a city administrator that is what we're most considering, then that would make most sense. It's just for all the other people that we're calling in, we have like a specific recommendation that we're, like even for personnel, like we have some specific recommendations that we're considering. So to me, it sounds more like we need a special meeting about even the concept of city administrator, because I don't think any of the work groups submitted that. And then from there, we can seek feedback.
To also make it just a quick point, you mentioned the cabinet, you mentioned having the members of that body here. And please, Councilor Hamilton and Director Ingrassi, if you can correct me on this if I'm wrong. But my understanding is when it comes to politics, that's the reason why you have a chief of staff. Chief of staff is the one that basically would hire staff and everything else. The mayor or the executive that will be in office appoints their cabinet. Therefore, they do that because the reason why they have a chief of staff is because there will be no conflict of interest in the realm of hiring or anything like that. I believe that's why there's a chief of staff. So if you're trying to get a hold of the chief of staff, that's fine, but I don't see why we have to reach out to the mayor herself per se on this on this particular item. I think the chief of staff would be able to best speak to that, but also I have to agree again with Commissioner Dwight in that if this is from the League of Women Voters or from another entity, then could they not also present that themselves as opposed to going straight to said source?
So not the cabinet, you guys can hear me, not the cabinet presenting on the perspective, them being present to answer any questions that we may have pertaining to it. So for example, I don't know if, Kathleen, if we can get you a mic so I can ask you a specific question to give them an example of what I believe would be happening in a meeting forum about the city administrator focus.
I think I would very much welcome input, but I think we're in the middle of a motion being considered.
Right.
And so I don't.
Second.
There was
Right,
not a
but
motion,
you've.
I think.
Oh, there was a motion.
There was a motion.
Wasn't a
Motion
second.
I thought you entertained the motion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but there's not a second, right?
Well, we have it. Let's resolve that.
Yes. So the motion was placed for there to be a special meeting regarding the city administrator focus, where the cabinet members will be present to answer questions that may come up pertaining to how those or how that body interacts or would interact, or if there would be conflicts or not, for the commissioners to be able to ask direct questions. And I would like that meeting to happen at the same, or that panel to be composed of Director Gray for her presentation to be conducted as well.
I am thoroughly confused about what we're trying to find out, figure out, and ask.
Kathleen,
I think several.
Hold on, before I'm not confused, let me just say that I'd like to see a simple list of questions that we'd like to ask anybody about whatever topic it is we're talking about, because I've missed the point of that as well. So I could be thick here.
So Commissioner Tatiana, let me give you two questions.
Well, actually,
The first question is, should we recommend or include and when a city administrator for the city of St. Louis? That's the first question. We've answered the question pertaining to the city manager. The mayor answered that question. And we answered the question pertaining to the council manager model. We've addressed both of those questions in special meetings and interviews prior. We have not addressed the question pertaining to city administrator model.
Madam Chair, might I say that the city administrator model should be part of our discussions about the E&A. It is not part of the discussions about personnel per se. And that when we bundle then administration is one of the considerations, and in fact, one of the proposals does have a form of administrator in it. So I would suggest that we return to our original discussion, which has to do with inviting Director Gray back at a time that is convenient to her schedule and to ours in terms of when we have developed further our E&A model, whatever it looks like, and it'll make sense, and we guarantee in advance of our meeting with Director Gray that we will provide questions based on what our learnings and what we still have gaps in, so that we can utilize her time at that meeting as effectively as possible.
So my understanding is that there's a motion on the floor. If there's not a second to that motion, then the motion fails.
The motion dies, yes.
And then we can consider, it sounds like you're, well, first, is that right?
Right, and so my proposal, at
Oh,
least,
wait. I'm just
we have
saying,
to-
is it right
So,
that the motion has
The
failed?
motion was not seconded.
Right.
And as a result of that, I asked for the member of the public, Kathleen, to speak to the city administrator focus, because Commissioner Tagliata wanted to know what questions would be asked in a special meeting set up for the cabinet.
Well, but no one seconded your motion.
So I'm entertaining the motion at this point. It would be a second motion. But before a second motion happened, I asked the member of the public, Kathleen, to speak to the city administrator recommendation that she has, that she brought to us at the public hearing, that I wanted to get addressed by the full commission, either in a special meeting or in this forum. That's why that was brought up. I
And
want to
I
make
think-
sure that she was given the opportunity to speak to.
I think that's okay for us to have a city administrator conversation, but
This is-
we're first talking about personnel, and then
Yes.
city administrator would be the next topic for us to consider slotting into one of the future meetings, right?
right.
Right.
It was brought.
It will be
brought up
slotted.
at this. It was brought up at this point because the director of personnel. My apologies. The director of personnel's article and the concept of just, or in the spirit of you all saying having the special meetings grouped and the panels being not having as many special meetings. It was under my idea that we would have Director Gray and the cabinet together collectively. But if you all want to have them separately, I'm completely okay with that. But I just wanted to.
Well, my clarification was that the special the administrator discussion is really part of the E&A discussion, not the personnel discussion.
Okay.
And so we concur that the administrator discussion should and will occur, but it's going to occur bundled with the E&A, not with personnel.
And so personnel would be its own topic that we consider
Yes.
approving together.
entertain two different motions so we can pass the point of confusion. The first motion I would like to entertain is a scheduled meeting for Director Gray to present pertaining to the Director of Personnel article at a time of her choice. That's
Second.
I would say at a time of mutual, yeah.
Yeah, that works with our special meeting / regular meeting calendar that we're laying out.
Thank
Second.
you. Secretary Bobo, for the vote on the motion, please.
Yes. Commissioner Bobo, myself, aye. Commissioner Crossland,
Aye.
Commissioner Garth,
Abstain.
Commissioner Grant,
No.
Commissioner Tagliata, Commissioner Dwight,
Abstain.
Vice Chair Sheridan,
Abstain.
Commissioner Nolan Eccles.
Abstain.
The motion doesn't pass.
Motion fails.
The motion fails.
Thank you. The next entertained motion is a special meeting from the League of Women Voters pertaining to the city administrator focus with the cabinet members present.
Could I add something just to close out that last one? So just make sure my understanding right. My understanding is that we haven't prioritized it as one of the topics. If Director Jenkins Gray wanted to, even beyond this, have some kind of presentation and request that of the Charter Commission, we would hear that request.
Yes.
But we haven't prioritized it at this moment.
Correct. Thank you.
So I just wanted to clarify that.
No.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so, all right, so there was another motion on the table.
Yes. The motion on the table, I would like to entertain a motion to conduct a special meeting for the League of Women Voters to present on the city administrator topic, focus, and recommendation with cabinet members present, along with the commission as a whole.
So I am always happy to hear from the League of Women Voters. We have made this incredibly difficult and complex to ask anybody from the cabinet to come because, first off, it's not going to feel like a particularly welcoming invitation. And just secondly, I don't want anybody to comment in real time right after they talk. That doesn't seem like a good learning process for us. So if you would amend the motion to say that we will hear on the city administrator role from the League of Women Voters at one of our upcoming scheduled meetings instead of a special meeting, which we're trying to eliminate,
Yes.
that would be great, and I would second it immediately.
I will amend the motion. I would like to entertain a motion to hear from the League of Women Voters pertaining to their recommendation on the city administrator.
Second.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bobo, abstain. Commissioner Crossland? Commissioner Garth?
Aye.
Commissioner Grant?
No.
Commissioner Intagliata? Commissioner Dwight?
Aye.
Chair Nolan Eccles?
Aye.
Vice Chair Sheridan?
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you. The last item on the agenda.
I'm sorry, if I could just break in here, just for further clarity, we're meeting tonight, April 1st. We're going to meet again on April 15th. What are we going to discuss and meet about on April 15th?
So what I've written down, and anybody can let me know if this is right, we've approved 3 different topics that we really want to prioritize for additional discussion. The first of that is E&A light heavy changes and public advocate. The second is a ballot strategy meeting, which we slotted in at April 15th. And then the third is a city administrator model, which is the motion that just passed.
Thank you.
That's it.
And so we'll slot those in and we'll assign those. I think my only other question is work group 3 have any other topics like the election cycle, or is there anything else that I was thinking of that as with personnel, but yeah, so is there anything from work group 3 that we should theme one of the meetings, and then we'll have a clear slate for what our next meetings are?
Civil service.
Thank you, Commissioner Dwight. That was helpful.
We still have our presentation from Commissioner Grant on the labor proposal.
Sure, thank you. I'll
Thank you.
keep this relatively short. I have circulated 3-4 weeks ago a proposed amendment on the right to organize and collectively bargain for city employees. There was also some feedback from members of the public at the last meeting. I'll just briefly explain why I've proposed this and the points I believe in favor of it. So this amendment would essentially enshrine the same right to organize and bargain collectively for city employees that currently exists in the Missouri Constitution. But I still think it's important to add to the charter for 2 reasons. One is that I believe as a city, we should document we should recognize the value of collectively bargaining for city employees, and I think it should go in our founding document, just like it's in our state constitution. I think also there are aspects of the current right that are subject to change through case law or also potentially through legislation by Jefferson City. And we know very well how local control can be taken from our city. And so it is important to do the best we can to protect these rights. So the amendment essentially follows to some extent Missouri Supreme Court precedent and federal labor law. It reinforces the requirement of the city as a public entity to bargain in good faith over wages, hours, terms, and conditions of employment. As a matter of policy, I think collective bargaining is beneficial to the city, its workers, and to the public. And that's because through collective bargaining, city and its employees can collaborate on developing solutions to problems that affect both their workplaces and residents on a really detailed level. So for instance, we constantly hear concerns about adequate staffing for trash pickup. Those sorts of concerns can be addressed through collectively bargaining and essentially come up through really well-tailored solutions to those problems. And so we constantly hear about issues about attracting and retaining workers, right? So those solutions can be developed and tailored through collective bargaining between the city and its workers. And that helps to increase morale. It also, when you come up with dispute resolution procedures, it avoids costly litigation to taxpayers. It also, collective bargaining also supports equity. It ensures fair wages and treatment by giving all workers rules to live by, giving the city rules to live by, and it gives a method for workers to have a voice in the workplace. So the amendment I've proposed also clarifies the process for bargaining, which is a little opaque historically in the city. It ensures that agreements which are acceptable to the city are passed as ordinances by the Board of Aldermen, which also retains the right to reject the contract, which in that case would be sent back to the parties for further bargaining. And it assures that labor agreements are enforceable, just like any other contract that the city enters into with a vendor or contractor. So just a couple of things. The amendment does not, for the process of collective bargaining, the amendment does not require the city to agree to any particular proposal, does not enshrine a wage increase or a change in benefits. A employer can always take a good faith position that a particular bargaining proposal is problematic and not in the best interest of the city as the employer or in the taxpayers, and that's okay. So there's no outcome dictated in this process. I do just want to mention, based on the public hearing, there were a few issues raised, and also at the group meeting we had last week, there were a few issues raised. So certainly tweaking the language of the proposal is fine, and I intend to do so. One, there were questions raised about would the proposal apply to existing unions as well as to existing non-union employees at the city? Yes, it applies to everybody. If there's already a union, they would continue to bargain through the process laid out in the proposal. If there are employees who are currently non-union, they would have the right to organize and collectively bargain as set forth in the proposal. There were questions about how a labor organization becomes the representative. Well, there's currently a process in state law for that, for which there's a petition and then a vote by which a majority of voting employees chooses whether they want to have union representation or not. This proposal wouldn't change that. employees could still use that state process. Alternatively, the Board of Aldermen could develop an alternative process of designation of a majority representative. Third, there were some questions raised at the meeting by the firefighters representative about the term modification that's used in that my proposal. That language is from state law. There seems to be a little confusion about it. Certainly, the point is not of the proposal is not to privilege any unilateral modification of a contract during its term by the city. It would just allow the Board of Aldermen to, if presented with a contract through an ordinance, a proposed contract through an ordinance, which would, for instance, require maybe a change to existing terms like how overtime is allocated or how promotions are made. They'd be able to say, well, that's a point of this proposal that we don't like. We think it should be modified like this, and then it'd be returned to the labor organization and the city representative to try to undertake further bargaining to try to reach it. So, but I'm certainly open to tweaking items that are unclear. That's I think a problem we face with any proposal we're going to start to circulating is the trade-off between brevity versus clarity. So with that, I'd ask for everyone's support for the proposal. I'd be willing to take any questions if people have any.
Chris,
Are we entertaining questions concerning the proposal?
Yes, Director Gray.
Chris, do you have examples of at the municipal level elsewhere that the right to collective bargaining enshrined as you're proposing has been done, and has it led to greater collaboration and fuller employment roles?
I am not aware of any at the municipal level, but Missouri is a strange creature, and that in
Well, it could be anywhere else at the city level.
I'm not. It's possible that that cities. I know. So certainly we have an existing ordinance in the city of St. Louis that recognizes the right to collectively bargain. That's not in our charter, but that's by ordinance. And that this came up at the work group about why do something that's already an ordinance.
Sorry, for those in the building, we just got a tornado warning, so. Yeah, I'm thinking we should pause and relocate to the basement for safety.
Could also move to agenda item number 8.
Adjournment.
We'll move to agenda item number 8 and entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
The only thing that I have to raise, and we don't need to deal with it right now, but we need a process by which we prioritize other items so that we can later add them to the agenda. Thanks. Yes.
So,
Aye.
aye.
AJ Jenkins, FaceTime video.